Well, now we are going to go to our next presentation of the afternoon. So, Brandy, can you turn your camera on and say hello?
Hi.
Well, we are so excited to have you today. So, as you pull up your presentation, can you give us a self-introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me see. Someone else is sharing, so I can't share my screen.
I stopped on my side.
Okay, awesome. Let me try it again. This is a big ask, like the multitasking is a big ask. So I'm Brandy Ferrer. I am the founder and CEO of Pathfinder Strategies. We're a leadership consultancy and team alignment organization. So we work a lot with people who are coming into leadership for the first time and helping them sort of accelerate their journey to finding their confidence so that they can be very effective in their role and help their teams be effective as well. Um, I'm really excited to talk about this leadership brand. This is a cornerstone of the work that we do with clients, and it's really important because this is kind of what we're told about leadership, which is the best kind of leader you can be is the leader you are. And Brene Brown has said this, Gary Vee has said this. I have used this quote in my books. Here's the deal though. People don't know what this means. People don't know what kind of leaders that they are. Most leaders are head down, working, running from one thing to another, trying to do the very best job they can for their teams. And we don't necessarily kind of think about the value that we're bringing uh, as individuals to that role. And so my own journey into leadership and where this became really evident for me was before I got into leadership, this is what I thought it was, right? I thought that, okay, cool, I'm gonna get promoted and I'm gonna have my cool corner office and I'm gonna make a lot of money and do the cool work. So I was very excited about that because that's what I believe leadership to be. When in fact, that's not at all what my experience was. And it's not the experience for most people. My own experience, my very first time as being a manager, within my first 2 weeks of starting in that position, I had pretty much pissed off a 5,000 person sales team. I had made a $10,000 mistake. And I had two members of my team get into a fist fight in the middle of my office. So, yeah, totally crushing the whole leadership team. Not really, or the whole leadership thing. So, part of where I fell down was that I had this belief, and it's a very common belief, that there is a singularly perfect kind of leader. Um, so I'm like, okay, well, if I can just read the books, if I can just listen to the podcasts and emulate what those leaders are talking about, man, I'm gonna nail it. And you guys know what I'm talking about, right? We've all seen those lists, like the 10 attributes of the best leaders. And that's great and that's important. But that doesn't take into consideration the value that we as individuals bring to that role. So we think that like there's this leadership unicorn, there's this perfect ideal, and it's not, right? So the other sort of trap that I fell into was there was a lot of crappy advice that was given to me as a new leader. I got told, you know what, you're smart, you'll figure it out. And probably the worst advice that I was given was, Brandy, just fake it till you make it. And the reason that that advice is so detrimental is because when we fake things, we're keeping ourselves isolated. We're pretending, right? We're not asking for help. We're not seeking support and doing all of those things that are necessary to be a successful leader. So I was listening to this advice. I was reading the books and listening to the podcast and doing all the things. But really, how I felt was I felt stuck. Um, I didn't I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel good about what I was doing. I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of checking the boxes, but I'm not really being there for my team in a meaningful way. I'm not really performing in a meaningful way because I was operating from a place of inauthenticity. And again, fake it till you make it, right? Now, confidence is incredibly important in leadership. So I want to share with you an example of this in real life. So I was hanging out with a group of realtors, and the main realtor, the broker, got up in front of the room and he was like, "You guys, we have all of these opportunities in the pipeline, but you guys aren't making any of the calls, right? You're not following up with people, you're not checking in with them." So those realtors began to give excuses. Well, the market's low, interest rates are high, this, that, and the other. But really, as we began to like ask questions and peel back the layers, what we were finding is that those were all excuses, and those were not the root issues of what was really happening. What was really happening is those realtors did not feel confident. And by the way, when I talk about confidence, I'm not talking about some BS, make direct eye contact, stand up straight, puffy chest. I'm talking about self-trust and believing that you bring value, right? So those realtors didn't they weren't connecting the dots. They weren't understanding the value they were bringing. They weren't thinking about, okay, well, maybe this person's not ready to buy a house, but I can share with them my knowledge about the market. I can help them do some credit repair if that's what they need. So they weren't really seeing their value, and they were scared of being told no, right? They didn't know how to navigate those conversations. So that's a small example of why confidence in leadership is so important. And you can see, this is kind of the difference between operating from a place of confidence, right? That self-trust and belief in your value versus operating from a place of self-doubt. So when you're operating from a place of confidence, you're like, I got this. I trust myself to make good judgments, to have the hard conversations, to make the hard decisions, even when I don't know what's on the other side, right? Even when I don't know what the outcome is, or it's a situation that I've never dealt with. So it's trust in your own abilities. It's being self-assured, right? Like, okay, well, I know I'm good at this, but I'm not good at that. So who on my team can I look to help me with that, right? To overcome that challenge. It's confidence is the capacity to handle those hard situations, which is a huge part of leadership, right? If leadership was easy, we'd all be doing it. We'd all be excited about it. But it's taking the action even when you know there's a risk, even when you're like, I'm not really sure how that's going to work out on the other side. And confidence means you trust yourself to adapt and to learn and to recover, even when you have this perfect plan and this perfect plan doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, right? So that's all of the things that we get from showing up in a way that's confident. And again, I'm not talking about fake confidence. I'm talking about really believing in yourself and your value and trusting yourself. Now, those realtors that I mentioned, there was a lot of things over here in this self-doubt column that became very clear as we were talking, right? There was a lack of belief in their value, right? Which means that they were hesitant to pick up the phone and call people that might have been clients or might have had questions, might be ready to buy. There was a fear of failure or judgment. This also shows up in the way that we make decisions, right? So when we don't feel confident in ourselves and we don't trust ourselves, there's a lot of hemming and hawing that can happen. There's a lot of like, I'm not sure, or the opposite, right? We panic, we have this knee-jerk reaction, and those kinds of things. And at the core of that is this feeling of I'm not good enough. And that's certainly how I felt in my early days of leadership. I'm like, why did they promote me? Don't they know I don't know what I'm doing? So this feeling of not being enough or not being good enough. And that holds us back. That keeps us quiet in meetings. It keeps us from having those real conversations with the people that we work with, or even in our personal lives. So we need to be operating as leaders from this place of confidence, not only because it feels good and it helps us make good decisions, it's a model for the people that we work with. So here's the question, right? Or here's the thing. Confidence doesn't come from faking it. Honestly, you guys, I wish I could strike that phrase, fake it till you make it, from the English language because I think it's so hurtful and so detrimental. And that's not where true confidence comes from. What happens when we try to like fit into this mold and we try and fit this ideal of the perfect leader, what happens is we do all these things that are not true and authentic for us. So we're misaligned. And when we're misaligned, it's incredibly stressful. It makes everything feel harder and it can cause burnout, right? Like if I'm constantly showing up as someone that I'm not, if I'm constantly showing it, like this book said I need to act this way, but I really want to act this way, it takes a lot of time and energy and intentionality to do that. And that leads to burnout. And by the way, if you're leading a team, they see that. They know you're not being your true and authentic self. So, how do you find your leadership confidence? Well, that's the exercise that I want to take you through for the rest of our time together. I call this your leadership brand, right? So the idea behind this and how this sort of came to be was I was meeting with a lot of leaders and I would ask them, well, what are your strengths? What are you good at? Like, what's your magic? And either I would get these sort of blank stares, or I would get leaders saying to me, well, I'm kind of okay at this, but let me give you the laundry list of things I suck at. That's not operating from a place of confidence, right? So let's first talk about your strengths. So grab a piece of scratch paper, note paper, whatever you have nearby, and I would like for you to reflect on and make some notes about your strengths. And don't overthink this, just kind of the first things that come to mind. And as you're answering this question, if you've ever taken like a strengths finders or I think it's zone of genius or disc, what strengths became clear as a result of taking that assessment. Think about the compliments that you receive. So Katie talked a little bit about this in terms of putting it into ChatGPT, but what are the compliments that people are consistently giving you, or the advice that people are consistently coming to you for? Um, what are the positive remarks you're seeing on your performance review, or the things that come naturally to you, right? And this requires a little bit of thought because when we're good at something naturally, we're just like, yeah, I'm good at that. It's easy. It's the water that we swim in. So just give yourself some time, and even if it's not right in this moment, come back to this exercise and really think through these things. So make a couple notes on that, on your strengths. And then I want you to fill in the blank. So this is really step one of identifying your leadership brand. Um, you're in this mindset about thinking of all the things that you're really wonderful at. And by the way, this doesn't have to be like huge earth-shattering woo stuff, right? This can be very simple, straightforward things. I used to get called into meetings all of the time, not because I was like super smart or amazing, but because one of my strengths is being able to take a large, like convoluted, complex idea and boil it down into something that's very simple. So I want you to, again, thinking about your strengths, pick the strength that you're like, that's me, that's it. And use that to fill in the blank here. I am a blank leader, right? If you had to boil down a description of your leadership, knowing the things that you are super strong at, what is that adjective? So for me, I'm a forward-thinking leader, right? So take just a moment, and I know I'm going through this fairly quickly, but take just a moment and maybe take some quick notes. I am a blank leader. Fill in the blank. Now, saying like, oh, I'm a forward-thinking leader, or I'm a compassionate leader, or I'm a dependable leader, like that's great. I want you to dig down a little bit more. Okay, so once you have that statement established, I'd like for you to think about and make note of your most important leadership values. Okay, so for me, I am a forward-thinking leader, which means I value different perspectives. I value sort of challenging the status quo. I value questions and ideas, right? Those are the things that are important to me as I lead my team and my organization. So, what are your top three most important leadership values? And I'll be quiet for a second and give everyone a chance to maybe make some notes. Okay. So step 3 of this exercise is about the behaviors that support your values. In other words, if I say that I'm a forward-thinking leader, how does my team know that? How am I showing up in ways that they'll know that's my kind of leadership and that's my strength? Well, on my team, um, we're constantly communicating. We're constantly iterating. I am often sort of pushing back on what we already have in place and asking, is there a faster way? Is there a better way? Does this make sense for you? I'm constantly asking the team, how long is this taking you? How are you working through this process? And we do make a lot of change, striving to be better because that's important. That's important to me and how we operate. So those are the kinds of behaviors that my team might see in my style of leadership. Now, if you said, you know what, I'm a compassionate leader and my values are really hearing different perspectives from different people and empathy, right? So those behaviors might be I ask a lot of questions, I listen to all viewpoints, I solicit feedback, right? Like, what are those things that people can actually look at you and say, oh, yeah, Brandy is that kind of a leader? So take just a moment and maybe make some notes on this piece of it. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like, the end result, right? I'm a forward-thinking leader, my most important leadership values, and this is again just an example, innovation, taking action, being able to work autonomously, not just for myself, but for my team as well, which is really important because we're fully remote and we're all across the country. Now, the behaviors that support those values, the things that my team can expect to see from me are I'm always asking, like I said, I'm always asking why. I'm constantly making quick decisions, which can be a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm making these quick decisions because I want to see what works. I want to see what's going to get us to the next place and the next place. My team can also expect that I'm going to rally people around our shared vision. So even though we're constantly, we're again forward thinking, we're constantly iterating, we're constantly improving, we still have the same shared vision. And that's our ultimate goal. That's our touch point, right? So when all is said and done with this exercise, you will have something that looks similar to this. I'm a blank leader. My most important leadership values are 1, 2, 3. The behaviors that support those values are 1, 2, 3. Now, the beauty of this is you've sort of done all of this reflecting, you've answered these questions. You can boil your responses down to your leadership brand statement. I am the kind of leader who blank. So for me, I am the kind of leader who sparks innovations, makes bold decisions, and inspires others to lead with purpose and autonomy. Yours will be different, and you want it to be different because you're bringing your authentic self to this role. And not all leaders are built the same. I mentioned earlier, I wish I could totally ban the fake it till you make it phrase from the dictionary. I also wish that I could ban all of those, like, here's your top 10 list of attributes to be a good leader, because it's different for all of us. And once you know the value that you bring, you can capitalize on that and you can build around that. So, when you lean into your leadership brand, here's what happens. Number one, it's a touch point for you. It's a reminder. In fact, when I do this exercise with clients, I have them write it out and stick it to their desk. So they're constantly reminded, like, oh, yeah, I may not know how to do accounting, but I know how to do this, and I'm amazing at this. So that reminder is a good touch point, and it's a great confidence builder. Remember, confidence is about self-trust and using your strengths to be able to handle situations and conversations that maybe are uncomfortable or maybe you're not familiar with. When you lean into your leadership brand, you empower yourself to let go of your strengths to build around your strengths and let go of the things that you're not great at. Not only do you give yourself permission to do that, but you actually empower your team. If you look at your team and you say, okay, you guys, here's what I'm really great at. Here's what I need from you. Like, here's the gaps. Who's good at what? Let's figure out how to make that work in our day to day. It's very empowering for your team. And it helps you add value. So often I see leaders who don't believe in their value or don't know their value. And so instead of sort of seeking that out and trying to understand, leaders will do things like, well, I'm just going to work 60 hours a week. I'm just going to do my job and my team member's job and this person's job, because if I do all the things, then I'm adding value, which is it's a very good shortcut to burnout. So if you can recognize and capitalize those things that you're already strong in, and then build around, and address those gaps, those weaknesses, you are going to position yourself to be aligned, which, by the way, feels really good, and sort of cuts back on that burnout because you're not trying to be something that you're not, and helps your team sort of shine, right? And allows them to show up as their best selves and use their value. So the last thing that I want to kind of leave you with, just as a thank you. With a lot of people that I work with, we do a leadership self-assessment, which is a really great way to sort of reflect and think about, like, okay, well, if these are some of the important ingredients of leadership, how comfortable am I with these? Where am I a rock star? Where am I not a rock star? So feel free, scan the QR code. Not trying to sell you anything, but it's a really great assessment. And maybe for you, maybe for someone that you work with, it does bring a lot of clarity and insight. So that's pretty much all I have for you. We're going to move into questions. If you would like to connect with me, here's my contact information, and that's my QR code for LinkedIn. I would love to have additional conversations. This is a topic I feel very passionately and strongly about. And I thank you all for being here and investing in yourself.
Well, Brandy, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation and for giving us some action items.
Yeah.
So we'll begin with this first question from Penelope, and everyone, please keep those questions coming. Penelope says, how can introverts effectively build their leadership brand or style?
Oh, I love this. Okay, so I could totally get on my soapbox and talk about our societal favoritism toward extroverts and this false belief that whoever speaks first or speaks the loudest is the one who's brilliant. That is BS. So I highly recommend you read the book if you haven't already read it, Quiet by Susan Cain. And I also recommend that you try and shape conversations in a way that feels comfortable for you. So one of the things that I often suggest is a lot of times introverts don't either want to speak up or they want to process information a little bit more. They don't necessarily want to move into that quick decision making. They want to think about, what's all the things that can go wrong? What are all the steps? So ask for that. Say, you know what? I need to think about this a little bit. Let me get back to you. Call on me last, or whatever the case may be. It's not about who's speaking the most or who's speaking the loudest. It's about the quality of what you're sharing.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, our next question comes from Naomi, and she says, what if I made a mistake as a leader? How can I move forward and rebuild?
Ah, such a great question, Naomi. Okay, so you might not like this answer, but this is like the best way to build credibility and connection with your team, which is to stand up in front of your team and say, I messed up, guys. I didn't handle that very well. I know I need to do better. I'm working on it. I would love your support in that. And that makes the team like, okay, this person is human and makes them part of your, makes them like a support for you.
That's great. Well, I think we have time for one more final question before we go to our panel discussion. And Jenna says, what if my personal leadership style does not blend with a company's culture?
Wow. Call me and let's talk. I think that's a hard place to be. One of the things that I often suggest for people is you, it's important to know your leadership style. It's also important to know what the organization expects from you and what the team expects from you. If you are fundamentally misaligned, like fundamentally, you don't have the same values, that may not be the best place for you. If you are fundamentally aligned, there may be a way to kind of work around the edges of that. I would be, I like legit would be curious to hear more about that, maybe offline or whatever, but that is a really good question.
Well, thank you so much. Well, as we wrap and move to our panel discussion for the afternoon, any final words of wisdom for our viewers today?
Oh, I wrote down, be good at you. That's what I wrote down. Be good at you. Because
Well,
that's your
thank you
best.
so much.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
Thank
put
you.
Brandy's contact information into our chat.
Thank you.